Greetings, dear ones. It is Monday, the 23rd of November, the beginning of Thanksgiving week in the United States. It is a time of year I have always loved. Thanksgiving has always been my favorite holiday. But this year, it's different for all of us. Not just Thanksgiving in the United States, but the whole holiday season for everyone around the world. I spoke about that yesterday in my weekly blog post, and the combination that I'm doing now of the weekly blog post as part one and the weekly Sunday afternoon with Maitri video, part two, those are about giving thanks in the time of COVID. And I was particularly proud of this blog post, and because I felt that I really, really hit the mark in saying what was in my heart to say. And that's the most important thing for me with the blog post. So I hope you all have time to read the blog post and or listen or watch the video. I had what really moved me in the moment. Something came to me to say, especially to those who are alone for the holidays or have a hard time on the holidays, to help feel less alone, a little exercise. And it felt very deep to me to share that in the video. So I hope that some of you have the time to watch those. Also, this is our Monday public video for the morning coffee. And so before I start reading our book, I want to explain to those of you who are watching for the first time that currently I am reading a favorite book aloud in little sections in the morning videos. It is Sue Bender's Everyday Sacred, A Woman's Journey Home. You may have read or known of her book, which was very famous and on the New York Times bestseller list for a long time, Plain and Simple, about the time she went to live with the Amish and learned about simple living. This was her second book, Everyday Sacred. It is a profound book. It came at an incredibly difficult time of my life, and it really saved me. It's a wonderful book. You can go back to last week. If you join Patreon, you'll have access to all of the morning coffee videos, which come 5 mornings a week. And I started reading the book last week, and you can listen and follow along. All right, dear ones, this is I will show you. This is also a painting day. I will be painting. And though the second tier is the art tier, I will share with you. I have my little paint sets. I have 2 paint sets here. And I will get this going today. And my little watercolor sets. I've struggled, as you know, to get back to painting Maisie because I was so busy getting Patreon going and had some things to think about, as I said the other day, Friday, in my update post. But I think we got things rolling now. So, without further ado, and I will make comments after I read, and I would love to hear from all of you in the comments after the post. This section is called Time as Teacher. To get shed a little more light on this situation. Why are there times when I don't know, and it doesn't seem to matter, and times when not knowing fills me with dread? To suffer one's confusion is the first step in healing, I read. I was relieved. Cappuccino. Early every morning, I go to a cafe near the Berkeley campus, Cafe Milano, to make my list for the day, write, and have a cappuccino. After talking to Gail, I found myself looking into my cup of cappuccino, seeing it as if for the first time. Martin from I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher this pronunciation, Guanajuato, Mexico, is there making the cappuccino. No matter how long the line, he never seems to rush. He has a quality I've read about in books, but have rarely experienced. A still point in the midst of activity. As he is about to hand over each drink, he stops, and with a gentle flourish, makes a smiling face in the foam. That gesture is the opening ceremony of my day. Being greeted by a different smiling face each day has become a sacred ritual. Martin is shy, and in this situation, I am also shy. We hardly talk, but his act of generosity blesses my day. Lessons on a hike. A couple of years ago, a friend of mine fell off a bike during vacation and hurt her knee. She and her husband were going on a hike in a national park, and she could only walk very slowly. She discovered her slowed pace helped her look at the world as if through a microscope. As they walked along so slowly, she discovered a lizard that was in the process of devouring a centipede. They spent 10 minutes watching. The centipede was trying to sting the lizard, but the lizard knew just how to avoid that. Of course, I would have missed this if I hadn't hurt my knee. Right behind them, there was a single hiker with a big camera. Every time my friend stopped to examine a wildflower, he would stop and look at the wildflower too, as if she were discovering something for him. Finally, the hiker came up to her and said, "You're seeing so many wonderful things." "I'm seeing these wonderful things," she told him, "because I can't walk very fast." Offerings. One day, I went to visit Mel to ask him more about offerings. In many religious traditions, a monk sets out with his begging bowl and an exchange is made, he began. Food is placed in his bowl and he accepts the offering gratefully. The offering gives him strength to do his work and, in return, he gives guidance and wisdom. Who gives? Who receives? Both are giving and receiving. What does a monk do when he's feeling deluged, I ask. The monk puts his bowl away when he has finished eating, he answered. If he ate all the time, there would be no time to digest. Even when I am doing things I enjoy, I tell Mel, I don't leave time to digest or savor what is happening. I almost never pause before going on to the next doing. Put a lid on the bowl, he said with a smile of a sphinx. How do I walk around with a bowl that is overflowing? The driven seeker wanted to know, unable to stop asking questions even after receiving the answer I needed. You walk very carefully. Circles. What are you doing? The flight attendant asked, genuinely curious as I cut and pasted small pieces of paper from a very large pile. I'm writing a book. This very large pile of papers is the introduction. When I'm finished, it will be 2 pages. I used to do circles, the flight attendant responded, sounding quite pleased with herself. Then she explained, before I ran around in circles. This was a delightful surprise. I hadn't said a word about circles or told her about the image of the bowl, which I see as a circle. I used to be really inefficient, she continued, but I'm a single mother, And now, besides my job as a stewardess, I have an extra job selling cosmetics. I've learned to make lists, go to the post office, go to the bank, order my priorities. I'm more focused and know what I'm doing. Now, when I get up in the morning, it's one part of the circle. At the end of the day, I complete the circle. Another container. A day is a circle. I'm sorry, my parakeets are in the other room and they are dreadfully loud this morning. Practicing patience. When I described this encounter with the flight attendant to my friend Mitzi, she suggested that some people look at life as a pie with a limited number of slices. She imagines many pies, or the pie expanding to include each new necessity. Mitzi has learned to phase things in. Knowing that anything she really cares about will get done, she began her PhD at age 22 and completed it when she was 55. Now, in her 70s, she's writing her first book. I never would have begun this book if I had to squeeze it into a limited time frame. When I think about my days, almost any day, I think about not having enough time. But Mitzi's small shift made me see that even if I can't do everything at once, I can do many of the things I want if I am willing to give them space and time and patience. Lessons from a small Italian town. 2 hours after my husband and I had arrived in the small Italian town, I wondered why I had come. Normally, I would have loved to be there, but this time, though I wasn't able to say it out loud, I had been reluctant to abandon my writing schedule at home. My first hours in town were spent wondering how to escape. Then Richard developed a cold and a terrible hacking cough, and I would have felt like a rat if I had left immediately. I remembered Mitzi, normally resilient and optimistic, telling me of the time she and her husband went to live and work in New York for 2 years. Their apartment was on 56th Street, between Lexington and 3rd Avenues, an intensely crowded and commercial neighborhood. She hated the noisy streets, and the scale of the city made her lose her sense of place. Eventually, she carved out a 2-block area around her apartment, getting to know the shoemaker and the shopkeepers, creating a small island of calm in the midst of all that she couldn't control. These 2 blocks became her sanctuary. She enjoyed venturing beyond, knowing she could return to a place that now felt like home. Mitzi's shift from "something is going wrong" to "this is what has been placed in my bowl" turned a potentially unhappy situation into a challenge for her and an inspiration for me. The first thing I did was recreate my early morning cappuccino ritual in this small town in Italy. Finding a place to have a good cappuccino and write for an hour wasn't difficult in a town that had a cafe on every street. I knew I couldn't recreate my life in Berkeley, but a rhythm developed, and I worked diligently. Though I still carried in my wallet the basic information about what it would cost and how long it would take to get back on the plane, the chance that I'd use this information got slimmer and slimmer. I arrived back in the States with a few stories, 8 extra pounds, and a very stiff neck. On a scale of 1 to 10 for stiffness, your neck is a 10, my physical therapist told me. I had been so determined to reframe a problem into an opportunity that I had spent too many hours poring over a tiny computer screen in my hotel room, not paying attention to what my body needed. Nothing I did helped to get rid of the stiffness. "You did what most of us do when we're stressed," Mitzi said kindly. "You self-correct in the wrong direction." She was right. Even when my computer breaks down and registers overload with warning signals and blinking lights, I never stop. I never think to stop and relax for a while. I smile and say, "Yes, a message from the universe," and push myself twice as hard. Resting when exhausted was never on my list of possibilities. Resting when exhausted is now on my list of possibilities. Little Sabbaths. We all need a certain amount of fallow time, Yvonne reminds me. Watching the grass grow, sitting on the hillside, staring out the window daydreaming. When we don't have it, there is a deeper intelligence that won't come forth. Mine is a racehorse rhythm, and once I get started in the morning, it's difficult for me to stop. Now I can see that a pause, even a very small pause, is extremely useful. These little Sabbaths replenish my body and spirit. Time. I remembered how everyone laughed and looked puzzled when they heard that Richard and I had chosen to take a 12-hour train ride on the bullet train in Japan to visit Ikai. Flying would have gotten us there in an hour and a half. "We should start a bank for all the time people save," Richard said with a smile. During our stay with Ikai at his mountain monastery, he told us how for years the local farmers would come to visit the temple after a long, hard day of work. Because they had no cars and the trail up to the temple was steep, they would arrive shortly before dark. The monks and the farmers would spend happy hours chatting together by the fire, and then the farmers would sleep at the temple. Now each farmer has his own small car, and there is no longer time for this leisurely visit. Nothing is wasted time. This week I inherited Richard's old computer. Delighted with the possibilities, I cleaned the work table, lined up hundreds of old disks in an orderly fashion, and in the process cleared my mind. Creative order was my topic. The computer proceeded to go haywire. First the screen went blank, then dancing, wavy lines appeared, and finally strange hieroglyphics. How quickly calm disappears. Stunned, too agitated to continue working, I sat down at my desk, took out a piece of paper and pen, and started having a dialogue with the computer. Me. "Why did you have a temper tantrum? I did everything I could to ensure a good start." Computer. "You think there's a magic rule you can count on to make things go smoothly? Things will always happen beyond your control." What a relief. Things will always happen beyond your control. Of course, on one level I know that, but I often don't act as if I know. When circumstances can't be changed, I can change. I can learn from obstacles placed on the path. Now, when I feel particularly stuck and think something is definitely going wrong and start believing the judge, I remember the computer blowout in the lesson I learned. Nothing is wasted time. If I can learn from a mistake, then it is not wasted time. The only mistake is not to learn from a mistake. And I haven't finished that section, but we're at 20 minutes. So I will take a pause, as she said. And I don't want to take up more of your time today, but I will be meeting with you in the room. I will be bringing content. I am going to boost up a post. I think if I write something in it, it'll pop up to the top, that I created when I started Patreon September the 1st, about the talking stick, passing the talking stick. Lisa asked me the other day how we could, I forget how she said it, but how we could, kind of communicate with one another as a community. And I cannot afford to add a community platform to our Patreon, private Patreon, yet, because it is a paid service. And when I hit 100 patrons, I will do that. But I started the post about passing the talking stick so that we would have a place for each of you, everyone, every day, any time, to come introduce yourself to the group, share what you do, what you're working on, come with a question or a problem or something you need support for. It's a place that can just be an ongoing thread where you can say hello and introduce yourselves to one another. Share what you're doing. Share your blog or website. I would love for everyone to get to know one another better. So I will try to bump that up today, and there will be new content at all levels. So I'm going to wish you a happy Thanksgiving week if you're in the States, and a beautiful, beautiful, warm day full of love from me to you and wee Molly, who's asleep beside me. And I'll see you in the room. Share this with anyone you want. This is a public video.